Welcome back to Primetime on ANC. It may be no match against China's military might, but the Philippine Armed Forces is still bent on defying China's warning against sending troops and supplies to the disputed Ayungin Shoal. Now, a little over a week ago, a Philippine civilian ship on a mission to Ayungin Shoal was able to evade bigger Chinese vessels.
Tony, that mission wasn't meant to provoke China, but to assert Philippine sovereignty. And because we're dealing with a bigger country here, this is where the AFP's modernization comes in.
And for our discussion tonight, we're joined here in the studio by Armed Forces Chief of Staff General Emmanuel Bautista.
And do send us your comments and questions through Twitter. If you want to join our discussion, use the hashtag Primetime or post your thoughts on our Facebook page. That's ANC 24/7. General, good evening to you, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you very much, General Bautista, for coming over to the studio. And, I guess everybody is thinking now, with the Philippines having brought China to the International Tribunal on the Law of the Seas, that it may seem that a peaceful settlement can be had of our territorial dispute with China. But even as that's happening, we still see China trying to reinforce its claim on parts of the Spratlys, the Ayungin Shoal in particular. And of course, our viewers will probably know that the Philippine military sent a resupply vessel to that ship that we scuttled on the shoal. And that encounter itself with the Chinese, showing how tense the situation really still is with China. Do you think that a military buildup by the Philippines is going to be a necessary step to counter China's presence in the Spratlys?
Let me start by saying that we renounce war as an instrument of national policy.
Do you renounce war as an
Yes,
instrument?
that's our national policy. That is why we brought this issue for international arbitration. We want to resolve this issue peacefully through arbitration and not through the use of force or intimidation. But let me tell you that we have not invested in territorial defense for a long time.
Right.
If you have realized, we have been so focused on internal security issues.
Sure.
And so, to a certain extent, we have neglected addressing our other mandates, specifically territorial defense. And so our modernization program is precisely that, trying to catch up what we have not done for a long, long time. We're just filling in the void, what we have not filled up in for a long time.
But with China's actions or recent actions in maritime waters that we consider to be part of our exclusive economic zone, does it make the modernization of the Philippine Armed Forces even more urgent?
That's right. It brings to the fore the necessity of really upgrading our capabilities to establish at least a minimum credible defense, so that we are not bullied by other countries, or so that we're not forced into situations that can give us...
All right. Maybe, General, you can help civilians like me and Casey understand what is a minimum credible defense.
Minimum credible defense is a situation where other countries would hesitate in getting into our...
Really?
Yes, to our territory, or...
and what would make China hesitate to enter our territory?
Many factors that would make a country hesitate. No, I'm not...
Not particularly
Yes.
China. Okay.
We're not against any particular country. But if it's going, the cost of invading another country is going to be so high, then perhaps that country will hesitate. The cost, not just in terms of military setbacks, but also of international opinion, of world opinion, and being condemned by other countries. Many factors that would make a country hesitate in invade another.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of people would understand it better if you give us a visualization of what a minimum credible defense would look like.
At least we should be able to know what's happening in our territory. So we would have radars to detect any intrusions, either maritime or air intrusions. So we have the ability to tell that there are unwanted people, unwanted persons in our territory. and to be able to at least tell the world that there are intrusions, there are illegal intrusions in our territory. The second part is being able to assert our sovereignty by being present, showing the flag in our territory.
Thereby,
yes.
that ship, the
Yes.
Sierra Madre.
We have to show the flag in our territory to assert our sovereignty. And also, if necessary, that we should be able to interdict any hostile intrusion. Our mandate is to protect the people in the state, to secure the sovereignty of the state and the integrity of our national territory. And we should be able to do that.
Okay.
If not unilaterally, with the help of friends and allies. After all, that is what the world situation is right now. People come together. I mean, countries come together.
That's exactly what China has said last week, that the Philippines, by resupplying mission and by seeking this arbitration and filing that case, they're saying that we are portraying this role of a victim in the international arena, that we are portraying that we are being bullied by the Chinese, whereas all they really wanted was for bilateral talks to happen, and that the arbitration really damaged relations seriously between the two countries, that it was our fault, in so many words, that we actually provoked them. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's them who are provoking us. In the first place, who was using force and intimidation to assert their will on a smaller country like us? We are the smaller country here. And how can we in any way intimidate or provoke China? They were the ones blocking our resupply, blocking our fishermen from doing their thing in the South China Sea. That's why we brought in the media to join us during the resupply, to tell the world who the real bully is. And I think we've seen that. We've seen who the real bully is in this case.
You know, of course, we've seen some of the pictures that were sent by our own correspondent, Shara Zambrano. She joined that resupply ship to go to the Ayungin Shoal, and we've had Shara talk about her experience going to that part of the Philippines. But from your point of view, and also from just as a background story, was it a calculated move on the part of the Philippine military to actually send that resupply ship, knowing that the Chinese would be prepared to try to block it?
Number one, it is a responsibility to resupply our people in Ayungin. We can't let them die of hunger. I mean, we have to resupply them. It is our right, it is our responsibility. Our right and our responsibility. That is why we had to do it. And we had to really find innovative ways, creative ways to be able to do that.
But you were taking a calculated risk because you knew the Chinese were watching. They were ready to move in to try to block the Philippine Navy from, well, it was actually a civilian ship that you used to reach the BRP Sierra Madre, but you knew the Chinese were going to act. What was the worst case scenario that you and the planners of this resupply mission had prepared for?
We did not want to be provocative. That is why we used a civilian ship, as you mentioned. We were just there to resupply our people. It was a calculated risk, as you said, because in the past they have been blocking our resupply mission.
Right.
And so, but we had no choice. We had to resupply our people. We cannot be cowed by intimidation or by terror. We should not give in to terror. We have to assert our right, and we had to resupply our people.
Were the men ready to be fired on, if ever?
Well, we do not think that they're going to fire on our people. Otherwise, that's going to bring in the international community. That
create an international incident.
Yes, that's right. And so we had to simply assert our right and go and resupply our troops in Ayungin.
In a way, Casey, and in general, I think what this resupply mission also did was, and no pun intended, was to test the water, so to speak, and to gauge just how far the Chinese military would respond. But in this case, not even the military yet, because it's the Chinese Coast Guard.
Right.
This is not even the Chinese Navy yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, we went there unarmed using a civilian ship. We were not provocative. And we went there to peacefully resupply our fleet.
So do you feel that this is a good sign that the Chinese did not use even stronger force to block the resupply mission?
Well, we hope that they do not use force to block our resupply mission.
Or succeeding resupply mission?
Yes, that's right. While we saw Chinese Coast Guard vessels there may be other Navy vessels
nearby.
Yeah. General Bautista,
sure.
A day after Shara Zambrano came out with her report about what happened during that resupply mission, she also posted another report about planes scouring the area. There was a Chinese plane, I think another one that was unmarked, and there was a U.S. Plane. What do we know about this? And did you know that they were also in that area?
There were Chinese planes, yes. There were also Philippine Air Force planes.
Correct. But there was also a U.S. plane.
They reported also seeing a U.S. plane.
Right.
You know, we normally exchange views with the Americans. Mm-hmm. We coordinate with them. They also patrol the South China Sea.
Oh, they do?
They do. They've been doing that for several decades already. It happened that there's a U.S. plane there, but I'd rather not talk about U.S. operations. Perhaps they can answer that. At least the U.S. Embassy can answer.
But is it safe to assume, General, that you knew that they were there?
Well, as I said, we always coordinate. And we know that they also patrol the area, the South China Sea. And we knew that from time to time there will be American planes or Navy vessels patrolling the South China Sea.
But of course they seek clearance from Philippine authorities.
If they go to Philippine territorial waters
or airspace,
yes, they seek clearance. But as I said, I cannot speak about
their operations.
U.S. military operations. I mean, they're in a better position to answer your questions regarding that.
Now, already we mentioned the minimum credible defense. Of course, you're saying that there are several factors that go into making such a credible defense. The radar that you mentioned, is that forthcoming? Are we actually buying new radars?
That's right. That is part of our modernization program to acquire air surveillance radars and also radars to monitor the maritime domain.
And we're not buying that from any Chinese supplier, of course.
You better not.
Yeah. We follow the government procurement process.
You might just be surprised one of the bidders, a Chinese company, right? All right. And now, of course, the radar is just one component.
That's right.
What other items on the AFP wish list have you jotted down to make up that minimum credible defense?
Like we're buying maritime patrol aircrafts also.
Okay. Brand new?
Brand new. And you must have seen me sign the contract for the FA-50.
Okay.
That's part of the acquisition also.
Right.
And we are also buying helicopters, trucks, communication equipment, etc.
All right.
When is the expected delivery date?
Varying. Like frigates, it takes time to build a frigate. At least 2 years, 2 to 3 years. It takes time also to build a fighter jet.
Okay.
Maybe a year or so.
Right.
And so the delivery will be based on the manufacture of all of these equipment.
And in the meantime, that you're following this timetable for the construction and delivery of these military assets, the Chinese themselves are not slowing down in their own military expansion. They already have an aircraft carrier. They're testing it already in the waters of the South China Sea. How is the Philippine military coping or trying to cope with that?
Right. You know, we cannot compete with China in terms of defense spending. We have a lot of money, and but we're not really competing with anybody. We're not competing with China. We're just acquiring minimum credible defense to be able to secure our territory from any threat, not necessarily China. We're not in an arms race with China. We can never
compete with
But this, General Bautista, this establishment of a minimum credible defense, does it also pertain to having allies protect and patrol our own waters? Are we looking at other countries probably to help us here as well?
That's right. Our alliances with other countries contributes to minimum credible defense. Well, that's part of collective security, where I said earlier that countries come together to help each other,
Yeah.
not just against any threat, external threat, but also during disasters, as you might have seen last Yolanda,
Yeah.
where our friends and allies converge here in our country to assist us during times of need.
But these alliances, where do they start and where should they end?
Alliances, well, one, we have only one treaty ally. That is the United States of America. We have other friends and allies. I mean, not necessarily with a mutual defense treaty, but we have friends out there. We also have the ASEAN community and
But-
the rest of the world.
So if the Americans come in and have an enhanced defense cooperation with the Philippines, you would welcome that?
We welcome an enhanced defense cooperation with the United States. As I said, the United States is our treaty ally, and we have a mutual defense treaty with the United States. That enhanced defense cooperation, in fact, operationalizes this mutual defense treaty.
But since you had the armed forces, where do you think should they be? Should they end? What are the non-negotiables, for example, for the
Non-negotiables.
armed forces?
Like, there is going to be no permanent basing. That's provided for in our Constitution, that there will be no permanent presence of foreign forces unless covered by a treaty. Unless a treaty is signed, and we cannot have permanent basing here of foreign forces.
General Bautista, do you feel that this agreement on enhanced defense cooperation, that it should be debated as well in the Senate, instead of it just being an agreement signed by our Foreign Affairs Department and maybe their Foreign Affairs Department as well, and maybe bullets or the negotiating points, or maybe the whole agreement itself be made public?
There are processes for doing that. I mean, if it is a treaty, then I guess it should pass through Senate. But this one is short of a treaty. It's not a treaty. So that's a political issue, and I don't think I'm in the best position to really address that issue.
All right. Of course, you did mention at the beginning that the country has somehow neglected to build up a minimum credible defense because the armed forces have been focused on internal security problems.
That's right.
And now that we've seen the recent capture of several high-profile personalities from the CPP, NPA, NDF, including Benito and Wilma Chamson, do you feel that the NPA is already, how do we say it, a minimized threat that you can now focus on external security?
Let me start by saying that we signed a peace agreement with the MILF that sets aside one of our
one of the fronts.
Yes, and now we're also addressing the New People's Army. At least our intent is to end armed struggle. With the MILF, our intent was really a negotiated political solution.
With the NDF, NPA?
Yes, we have seen the decline of the NPA. And we have seen their setbacks. As you mentioned, the arrest of the Chamson couple. And we hope that this event, we hope that the NPA now realizes the futility of the armed struggle. There is no reason for us to really engage in armed struggle. There are many ways to pursue our agenda. More peaceful ways, more effective ways, as we have seen. With the MILF, it was a negotiated political solution. We've been in conflict, internal conflict, for so long, more than 4 decades. But what has it resulted to? Where has it brought us to? A lot of suffering for our people, a lot of futures of the youth destroyed. How long shall we go on fighting? Yes, we have a lot of problems, but definitely the solution is not for us to fight each other, to kill each other.
But you did mention, of course, the negotiated settlement, at least with the MILF, having been signed recently. But with the CPP, NPA, NDF, the talks have bogged down. And in fact, our own government peace panels doesn't seem optimistic that the talks can be revived. In the meantime, what is the military doing to address this situation?
Well, we hope that the signing with the MILF motivates them and the other threat groups, that there is a solution, a peaceful solution to any of our problems. And we want them to end armed struggle.
But you've heard the rhetoric coming from Joma Sison, Luis Halandoni, and do you feel that the MILF peace agreement has motivated them?
Well, you see, we have now many from their ranks coming down the hills. And I hope the rest of them see the writing on the wall that our people does not want any conflict anymore, does not want any violence anymore. We're sick and tired of that. And we hope they follow the lead of the MILF. For those who would remain up in the hills and continue pursue the armed struggle, it is our mandate to protect the people and the state, and we shall perform our mandate to do that.
General Bautista, you mentioned the MILF, and we do know that the armed forces has two faces. It's not all about military might. It's also about humanitarian assistance. With the peace agreement now signed between the government and the MILF, you're not just about to leave the region, right? You're going to be engaged in development as well. Tell us more about that.
That's right. Not just development, also help our people, assist our people during calamities and disasters. That's why I've been emphasizing that we should end all internal armed conflict now, because we have a lot of issues to face, a lot of threat out there facing us as a people. Climate change, we have seen the effect of that last Yolanda. We have problems with our West Philippine Sea. So we have a lot of issues to face. And hopefully, all our internal armed conflicts should be ended so that we can focus on these issues. We need to focus on these issues as a people.
Now, just to, I guess, wrap up our interview with you, General Bautista, of course, the Philippine government is expecting the arrival of a very important guest. President Obama of the United States is coming sometime around the last week of April. Were there any talking points that the Philippine military also suggested be taken up, of course, during that very brief visit by President Obama?
We're looking forward to enhance defense cooperation, to better cooperation, interoperability with our friends and allies. We have the Mutual Defense Treaty with the United States, and we would like to strengthen that further. And we have been friends and allies with the United States for a long time, and we will be in the future for a longer time.
So you want a stronger commitment from President Obama in terms of a U.S. pledge to help the Philippines with its military needs?
I guess they've already said that, but we continue to look forward to stronger defense relations with the United States, our only treaty ally.
All right. In the meantime, we'd like to thank General Emmanuel Bautista for coming over to ANC. I think it's your first time to actually be here. You did wear your best dress uniform, well-starched, coming out of your wardrobe, and thank you very much for sharing with us your thoughts on many different issues confronting the AFP.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be invited.
And we hope to have you back in another episode of Primetime. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Coming up next, a power rate hike is